Should be streaming now. Let me just check that with John. Let's see. Should be live now.
Yep, you're good.
Awesome. Should be streaming now. Let me just check that with John. Cool. Excellent. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Leo? That's Leo. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. It's so funny doing these things without having any like physical presence. It's all done basically through the air. So, and you know, normally it's like when we work on things, we're together and close with people. So it's quite interesting. So, and doing something as intimate as creating art or creating something creative, in that creative realms, it's quite difficult, I think, sometimes to do that. But I think all of that said, it's been pretty awesome being able to achieve the results we have and just being able to connect and work with you guys on all this stuff. So, yeah. So I think, John, is that all? That's everybody that's going to be here? Looks like,
Yeah.
Leo, everybody else couldn't make it.
Yeah, I heard from one of them, but I'll reach out to them to confirm. So I'll let you know.
Bunch of slackers. No, it's all good. I know it's kind of an
I
odd
think
time of
John
the day.
said that on.
Did you say something on the Slack channel or something?
Yeah, John said that he cannot do it today
Oh, okay.
because he's full of work.
Ah, cool. No worries. All right, guys. Well, let's get into it. Do any of you guys need to start first or have to go anytime soon, or
No.
take that as a no? Okay, so to refresh everybody that might be there, like paying attention and watching us, what we're doing here is, this is the stage 2 of kind of how I go about deciding, designing things for title sequences, pitching ideas, the concepts. In the last video, if you haven't seen it, if you go back, you can watch it. I believe it's John. It's on the Twitch stream, right? And on YouTube, I think now, or
Yeah, we're still working on transferring over to YouTube. I'm having some issues with that, but we'll figure it out soon. For now, just feel free to watch it on Twitch. They're all there.
Yeah, twitch.tv/learnsquared. You're already probably there, obviously, because you're watching this. So just to kind of give you a little basis of what we're doing here. So for those of you that are entering now, I'm just going to be focusing only on main title design stuff right now. You can definitely ask UI questions if you like, and I can go into that. And I'm eventually going to start getting into that realm as well. But for now, what I'm doing is I've invited some of my mentorship students back, all of them actually, any that want to come back and propel their skills and kind of learn and try some new things. What we're doing is we're focusing our energy and attention around 2 films. One of them is Donnie Darko, which is one of my all-time favorite films. And the other one is 12 Monkeys, which I don't know how it came about. That's a random one, but I still really quite love that film as well. So I haven't seen it in a long time, actually, and I was supposed to watch it this week so I would be fresh on like giving you guys ideas and stuff, but I failed you. But anyways, I guess the first thing, let's dig into it since everybody's okay with like just taking time. We can probably start with Leo and kind of talk about like, what you're thinking with the Donnie Darko and having this kind of op art idea and style.
Yeah, sure. I try to use the reference, my mood board as base,
Yeah.
and find out, because I really want to use these patterns and these really geometrical and simple lines and shapes to go all across the idea. So I try to find like a focus or important parts of the story without telling everything, and use the style and mix pretty much. That was I just try to use my mood board and be kind of don't go around, sometimes you change your plan. Like I really want to do my frames on that style of my mood board, so I try really hard to keep on the style.
Awesome. Yeah, I think you're definitely hitting it, and it's kind of cool as you have like some iconic pieces from the actual script in here, like the turbine and like the wheel of it, and then having that same graphical approach and stuff. The interesting thing that's fun with this kind of project is that this might not necessarily fit like right inside the film, but it's almost as if like a Drew Struzan movie poster adaptation of a film. Like it has the core elements, but it's still quite abstract. Like, have you ever seen Drew Struzan's poster for The Thing? Seen that one?
I'm not sure. I think so. Maybe on my reference, I saw something. I'm not sure.
I can show it actually. But it's what I'm getting at is, let's see, Drew Struzan Thing. Let me open this up. Struzan Thing poster. Yeah. If you look at this, so like what I'm saying is in the poster, I mean in the film, like it's more or less an artist's interpretation of what's happening. And I think because from what I read, like he had to do this in like a day's time or something like that. He had some kind of crazy turnaround where he didn't have a lot of time. But it became more or less iconic because of his lack of knowing all the details and having just the right amount of information to come up with something quite interesting. So, which is really cool. So what I'd say like about what you're doing here is it wouldn't fit necessarily to put in the beginning of the film. Perhaps it would, but it'd be, I think what's cool is like it's almost like you're doing an adaptation of an idea by merging a style. And I think by exercising that's all that matters really, is exercising your ability to kind of merge ideas and combine things and kind of come up with interesting concepts that also feel like unique and different. So
it's weird because I never thought about, I mean, I thought about the idea of the title, but never thought feeding on the movie. I mean, that wasn't a concern for me. Like they have to feed at the beginning. I thought that they can live before the movie as a complete piece. So
yeah,
that wasn't my concern when I was thinking on doing this one.
Oh, you're thinking at the end of it?
Yeah, I mean, my point is that that was never a concern, that how it's gonna fit from here to the movie. I
Cool.
thought that you can do some kind of nice transition and it's gonna fit, because when you see the movie, after you saw the movie, you're gonna go back to the title and say, now I get what you did,
Yeah,
did this
definitely.
or that. So
Yeah, that's a good idea actually though. Yeah, definitely. I think that there's definitely there's certainly ways and like transitions and interesting ideas and forms to kind of transfer the audience into different styles and stuff, which is really cool too. So yeah, I think I guess my only suggestion would be I think this is something we talked about quite a bit in the mentorship too, is like knowing which lenses to use and where to place them. I think that's one thing that's quite interesting about how I see people interpret their way of using 3D. And this is more or less a style thing, and take it for whatever it's worth from me to you. You can, whether this advice works for you or not, and we talked about it before too, is like which lenses to use for which shots and where to set them up. And one thing I always suggest, and something that I try to dissect, is I always look at and I research and try to find out what cameras and lenses that the crews are using when they're making a film, so that I can then use that to reinterpret and put into my 3D scene, basically. Because the beauty of working in 3D is like you can have the world's most incredible camera and the most complex and diverse camera, really. Because all you have to do is adjust the dials into the right setup so you can get the different aperture that you want, or the different focal depth and all that kind of stuff, and also the range and stuff. So so I would maybe think about like just how you're framing things up. But I think that the way that you're building this into the idea of the storytelling of like you know, far away shot, medium, and then you're closing in on it, and then you're getting closer into the spiral. What you could probably do is just have like one frame where it's just a giant spiral from here, you know? It could be like completely just like one spiral, and then going from that spiral, like connecting into like following those lines and transitioning into this, where it's just like the, is this the golf course? Is that the golf course idea?
yeah, that was the idea. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. And in your mind, like another thing that we always talked about too in our mentorships is like always seeing it animating and playing out in your head, because when you do these like ideas and you're pitching the ideas to the client, you always have to keep in mind that they don't see it like you do. So you have to constantly envision it. So if you were to walk me through it, let's say that the client was really intrigued by this, and if you were to have a call or talk with the client themselves, the director or the executive producer or whatever, and they were to say like, hey, like explain to me how this all works. Do you have it moving in your head already, or is this something that you're still like working on?
Yeah, no, I have some shots, but I want to do new ones, so probably I'm gonna try to make new transitions. But yeah, it was kind of that idea. I thought watching the plane far, getting close, so the lines are moving, so you get on the turbine, and then the turbine is falling, so you see the spiral from up, and
Yeah.
then I thought that you see from side, and you see that the two universe, when you make this wormhole, that the center is thinner, and then the edge is really huge,
Mm.
and the turbine was on the center, like really from far,
Yeah.
between this one and the golf course, and then going into the lines for the golf course, and then again use it to go to the numbers. So yeah, I kind of had the idea how it's gonna move.
Awesome. I think you could do like a lot of interesting things where you're combining scale. So like, let's say when we first start off, like this is part of one of these numbers on the side of it, you know? And what we're doing is we're kind of traveling through this world and seeing different bits and pieces of it, which is then turns into the numbers, which could then kind of collapse into themselves and become, say, um, like that, you know, where you're flashing from black to white could be interesting. I think the idea of doing the infinity, which is I think that thing you're talking about, like this thing,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. If you could graphically represent that somehow, that'd be
Exactly.
really cool to have like the wormhole basically,
And
because
then I saw the turbine on the center, so you can feel this two
yeah,
universe. That's my one of my kind of key shots, like the two universe.
yeah, I think that could be really cool. It's figuring out a way of showing those two worlds in a really interesting dynamic way could be really cool, and having a form of being able to see this. I guess what you would probably do if I were you, because you're making this all in cinema, right?
Yeah, all
So,
cinema. And, yeah.
so it's like a cinema with like a checker pattern with just like no
No,
Y or
no.
something. What is it?
Actually, I found out I'm using a really strange technique, but it works really cool. I found that when a guy from Imaginary Forces.
Okay.
You use the gradient and you map it on the set space, in the
Hmm.
deep space. And then when you move the camera, actually the lines moving related. So the gradient moves related to the camera. When you move it, it's really interesting how it moves
Oh, that's
because it's
cool.
taking the camera
Oh, it
to
creates a depth
another
map?
lens. Exactly. It's like a
Oh,
dead map, but it's mapped into the gradient. So it moves really strange. So, but it's really interesting how it works.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's
I
cool.
kind of reward the technique, but because he used it to fake a step depth map. But then I
Yeah,
thought that I can use for the gradient and reverse it, and it works really well.
that's awesome. Yeah, I'd love to see how you're doing that because I've heard about that, and I've actually achieved a weird effect like that similarly by taking a still image, but and making depth to it, which is interesting too. But yeah, it's always interesting when you can find these different things because yeah, what you're saying, my approach of it, I think would have been very flat and it wouldn't have worked like the way that you have, which is it has volume, which is quite interesting too. So um,
Exactly. Yeah, I tried the regular, but it looks really flat because it doesn't follow the natural shapes of the 3D.
I think yeah, I think if you had because I think you like the things that are working for me at least, and this is my perspective, is you have all the ingredients. I think maybe I'd play with a couple more icons the like mask,
Yeah.
like the bunny mask would be good. The axe would be
Mm.
good to have in there too, because it's iconic in form. And then what I would do if I were you is what I would do is I would probably try to look at more like Bauhaus iconic design where it's much more like it's hard to explain, more like not isometric, but it's much more flattened out and more or less like a caricature of the icon, if that makes sense. And that's all that is just your lenses, like how you're viewing the world. And this, again, this is just me. But in like, so for example, like this shot has a lot of good dynamics, but I think if it were to be like, you reframed it and you had maybe a top view of the plane going this way, and then you had black space, and then you had like the lines like this or something. What you could do is you can create some interesting like tension and also dynamics by making it more or less graphic, so that the graphic design of it is helping. It's more or less just changing your point of view. Like if your POV shifts a little bit into more of an iconic. Like I would say, like I hate to do this, but I think it's good is like if you look back at, say, like when people were more limited on what they were able to do, like a Saul Bass or something. Like when I think the thing that makes his work so stand out and still very timeless is the restraint on the ability to go and use things like Cinema 4D or Octane and have like a million options. And I think that's what's interesting about 3D is like people have too many options, and then it becomes like this weird thing that kind of like eats itself alive kind of. So, but that, again, these are just more or less my own takes, but I would look at the very rigid process of how to make this more or less iconic. I read it, but it isn't iconic for me at least. And I think it's more or less, you have all the ingredients, but it's, for me, in my perspective, if it was the POV shifted ever so slightly, I think it would be interesting. So if like you went from the side of the plane or something, and then you had the background quite interesting or something, and then you had like the way that the engine turbine, like the frame we were talking about earlier, if it kind of spins and like it becomes like this massive spiral, and you could do something interesting with the typography where you can have like the type kind of like coming out at you, you know, like the spiral eventually turns into type or something, you know. So just those kind of ideas too. And again, these are all just like, I have the really great privilege of like letting you go do all this work and then me come back and critique it. So it's like quite unfair. and I know that is so, but at the same time, I'm hoping that this feedback will make your work stronger. And I think by trying to think of things a little bit more of in an iconic form and adjusting your lenses, maybe like a 135 or something up in like from 80 to 135, to kind of flatten it out and to give it less, unless you're going for like a much more dynamic, but it's more or less your framing and finding the way to make the framing work into your advantage to like create a lot more depth and compositional like harmony that would be kind of interesting and clashing too. Like when we talked about when we were working on always Whiplash, like your frames for Whiplash were brilliant. I still remember them, and I think if you can implement those kind of those bits and pieces in like you did with that, I think you'd have like a perfect blend between these two worlds, you know. So
yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna try that, and I'm gonna go back to all this illustration from planes, like from the 60s or 70s, you know, that they are really limited and flat, and they use more iconic lines and this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
makes sense. And maybe I get some of them dynamic because I don't want to all of them look super flat, but that was kind of the idea, because with the number I try to do it really like more graphical instead of the lines. It's really some more, the number for me was a kind of graphic design. Also the black one with the car.
Yeah.
It's more like two lines almost. I mean.
Yeah, and I like
really
this. I think it's
graphic
good.
design.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But maybe what you could do with this one is more or less like paring things down, right? Like trying to find what the core essence of it. Like instead of doing a larger golf course kind of thing, the only thing that reads a golf course to me is the flag. So maybe what you could have is just a frame where you just have like the whole, and then you have this come up, and then you can transition into like a frame that, eventually like goes up to the pole and becomes this thing with the flag, and then maybe that can turn into something else in a clever way. Oops. Maybe the pole itself turns into like the infinity spiral, like, you know, like you can play with scale and size or something. So like going into it or something. So again, these are all like, you know, just suggestions and ideas, and it's more or less paring things down. Like when you make your frame, especially when it comes into this, because there's so much stuff going on, it's you think to yourself, like, what can I strip away? Like, what are the ingredients, you know, like what are what are the best ways to convey what I'm trying to say in the most simplified version. I think if you're trying to make, well, I'm not sure, I guess it's more or less me assuming, but if you're trying to make timeless work that stands this test of time, like out of all the things that we all had worked on and together, I still remember quite clearly your Whiplash frames. And I think it's because you took a lot of time to like pare all the core ideas down, and your subtle details and like the color or the shift of things like ever so slightly matching the narrative was brilliant. And I think for me, and again, these are my opinions, I think that if you were to like submit these and send these to a client, these are completely fine to send off to a client. What I'm telling you is like, this is more or less going further than that, you know, like digging into the ideas further and stuff. So, and it's easy for me, like I said, it's easy for me to say that while I'm like over here, like, you know, like not having been involved in doing all this stuff and trying to solve these problems, you know. But sometimes it's good, as we talk about the map, you know, like getting lost or like keeping ourselves in track with where we're needing to go. So
No, I think that's perfect because actually, I mean, I'm happy with these frames like a first approach, but that this one for me was mostly the proof of concept to see if I can do it in that way with only these lines and the effect that we talked on the mood board, remember?
yeah, no, you can definitely pull it off.
This one is like my proof of concept, and now I want to really refine.
Awesome.
One of our, sorry,
It's working, so
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, John.
Sorry to interrupt. One of our viewers said that you could also use the checkered pattern on racing flags. He said that could be more iconic. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, I think the techniques that you have is definitely working with the depth map, and having like the lines coming over can work really well. Because if you do like a racing checkered board, it would really not match, I think, with the core and the theme of the actual film, because there's no racing involved in it. But I'm not sure if that was the intention. But yeah, I think definitely like you've proved that you can achieve it. So now it's more or less like paring down those frames and finding the ones that are most iconic and stuff, and how they would work together and stuff. So, but yeah, you definitely have the start of it. Is there anything else I can help you with?
no, I think over the time I'm gonna send you frames.
Yeah,
I
please
think that
do.
now I'm gonna go back because I also think that for some of them, like the first one with the plane, it worked, but now I know that the density of the lines for me doesn't work. I mean, the technique works, but I need to refine, and some of them have to be thinner, and so I get contrast and this kind of thing that I'm missing now
Yeah.
in some of them.
Yeah.
But pretty much that was my proof. So I know the technique already, so I know what I can do with this, and
Yeah.
now I'm gonna rethink my whole thing again
Awesome.
and send you new frames.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think what you could do to save yourself any grief or anything is just sit down with yourself in your mind, think about the film, and then just kind of like, you remember how we talked about like just like quick doodles, quick sketches, just getting your
Yeah.
ideas out, you know, like writing down all the names or the words and stuff, and kind of finding those core elements. If you need to do that, you don't have to do that process, but then if you can have them all here, you can have just like the rough ideas and go like, okay, because for me, it's like a roadmap, you know, as we always discuss, like, you know, you have your starting location, and then you have your finish. Let's see, crop, I'm gonna make this canvas a little bigger. Let's see this. So like you have your start location, which is here, and then like you need to end up here, but like your thumbnails are going to be right here. You're going to have like time to do those, and then it's like all these little steps. But now like the cool thing is you've already proven that you can make the finished product, because you figured out all the technicalities, which is great. Now it's more or less like supporting those images by finding like really core, iconic, and strong design. So I'd look into like that era of design closely and understand why it's so good. And I think what you're gonna find ultimately, it's all about the restraint. Don't mind my handwriting; it's just atrocious. So. But yeah, the restraint in which.
Don't worry, I'm taking notes, so it's fine.
Awesome. Yeah, I apologize. You know how it is. I'm always like my notes are always really quite horrible. But yeah. Yeah, you know, like think about just removing all the ingredients. I think of like that style of design almost like I would say in comparison to food is like sushi is, for example. Like sushi is very complex and it's different ingredients, the flavors, but usually the ingredients is usually like 1 to 2 different things combined, and then they make this really outstanding combination, but it's just 1 and 2 options, or sometimes 3. In America, I think we've kind of ruined sushi a little bit, but that's just how we do it. Maybe we made it better. Some people think we made it better, but what I'm saying is like the true great sushi comes from pure ingredients, and the final output, even though it's very simple, in comparison to say something like a very fancy like French dish or something like foie gras or something like that, you know, like where it would be completely on the opposite spectrum of some complete list of different types of ingredients or something. So I've never had that, by the way. It sounds really weird. So it's like the liver of a duck that's been force-fed sugar or something. I can't remember. Or goose or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Doesn't sound good.
It sounds like punishment food. So yeah. But anyways, back to the topic though. Yeah, I think just have fun with that. You send me along whatever if you need some help. Like I'm here, you know, always to help. So but I think that the great thing is you've figured out how to technically solve the idea that you're after. So now it's more or less like finding those frames that really resonate with you, because when you're done with it, then you can look back and be like, anybody, like what you really want to have at this point is anybody could look at this and go like, oh, that's Donnie Darko. That's like a rad tribute to an idea behind the themes inside Donnie Darko. And right now I don't think we have it because it doesn't have those iconic pushing, like those things like with the Whiplash, I knew it was Whiplash because it's even though it's circles and squares basically and rectangles, it all makes sense. Like it had a narrative to it. So, but again, another problem could be is that I made you pick this film and you might not be connected to it. So, yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes you have to do it. Even you have to find your way out. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, baby. It's all about problem solving. So yeah, I mean, and another thing, as we talked about too, is like, it's really odd and weird to be able to like make a title for a film that's already done. It's like completely not the process in which it works in the professional business, which is like you get a script or like a couple sentences or a quick call from somebody telling you like what they think the film's about when they don't really know. And you're just trying to guess through the pattern. So, but yeah, man, I'll keep in touch with me through the week and we'll just keep going from there.
Yeah, sure.
Killer. Anything else I can help you with?
No, for now, I'm just gonna, as I say, go back, and now that I proved my technique, I'm gonna try to find this iconic
Yeah.
scene.
I need to go rewatch this too, so I'll rewatch it and then I'll come back into it, and maybe like I'll have some thoughts for you too. Be like, oh, you should use this scene, or like you should put that part in there, or like transition that, because I think you could do the turbine. You could turn the turbine into the wormhole with having the engine there, like that kind of stuff. But if you can find a way to iconically show that, it could be really quite interesting. Almost like a ribbon of white lines that are kind of drawing on, and that could be kind of your concept. Like these ribbons of light are basically being revealed and becoming this like interesting tapestry that covers the landscape and makes everything quite iconic and unique. But it could be, where you could get into it quite deeply is like you could be looking at the white part of the graphic as being like time, and then the black is space or something like that, and you can combine the two of them together to make space time and all that kind of stuff, you know. So you can go and get really crazy into the metaverse of it. So
Yeah, no, totally.
cool.
That's what we did in the work last time. I take your idea and then rework it and go back and forward. So
Killer. Awesome.
we
Cool.
can
Well,
do that.
let me know if you need anything else, and then we'll just keep jamming along.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Thanks, homie. Awesome. All right, cool. John, everything good?
Yep. Good
Awesome.
to move forward.
Excelente. What's up, Phil? You there?
Hey Ash.
Hola. ¿Cómo estás?
Grande? No, that's not the right word.
You're doing large, baby. Yeah, you live in large.
Yeah, that's it.
La vida le grande or
Just
something.
that.
That's awesome. Awesome. How's everything going for you?
Really, this week's been really mad. It's been a bit crazy, but it's okay. It's okay. How about you?
Yeah, it's life is crazy. So every day.
You just embrace the madness.
Yeah, you just gotta take it in. You gotta grab madness and give it a big hug and let it know it's okay. So yeah, I know all is really good, and just trying to keep ahead of everything. And I'm glad to be here though, and to be part of this with you guys and stuff. So how's it been since the last time? Did you have any chance to kind of play around and think about more of your ideas and stuff?
I looked at some type options. I think this is the old folder.
See.
It should be in the Dropbox. I'm pretty sure
This one, the PDF.
No, I don't think so. It should be just some PNGs in a folder.
See, yeah, these are the PNGs that are in here.
Oh no, those are the ones which I sent last time. And basically, I was just looking at kind of typography.
Let me see if this is it.
In that,
Maybe you sent like the same folder or something.
Yeah, maybe I did.
It's been that rough of a week, dude. Let's see.
If I quickly upload it to a Dropbox, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Hey, John, do you think it'll go in there? Okay, I have it synced up to the folder, so.
They're not very large, so it shouldn't take longer than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, that's no biggie then. Let's see. Yeah, because I have.
It's like a few tests anyway, because I was kind of like looking through different fonts and then just kind of try to play the kaleidoscope idea with the type, but kind of running into a couple of issues like keeping it legible. But yeah, you'll probably see that in a second. But also, starting to think more about how to get to kind of improve the images. Powell suggested trying to make them a bit more kind of like 4D, kind of have a bit more depth in dead space, which sounds cool. So I've been kind of just doing some research into that and looking into doing sims and stuff to kind of get the shapes that I want. But I might also just try and do some of it by kind of just doing it in Photoshop, I guess, kind of just having a few more layers, getting closer to the camera and blurring them out.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I went through like a million different typefaces.
What's your process with picking out typography?
I was literally this time I was just going through every single font. It wasn't the most efficient thing, but I was pretty indecisive on what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I wanted a serif, and that's what I've gone with. But I didn't want to just be kind of like defaulting to like a serif from small caps, because I know I did that. I used serif for small caps a couple of times, so I wanted to kind of at least look at some other options. But the serifs did kind of speak to me a bit more.
Yeah, I think a serif fits the feel of this film quite well. I think it just kind of there's this film is quite interesting because you can't put your finger on exactly what the genre or because I guess you can, but for me I felt like it has so much more depth and value, and I think that there's a bit of classicness to it. There's a classic quality to this film. I consider it to be kind of a timeless film for me personally. I mean, even though it's dated by the music, and Jake is obviously a very strong actor now, and he's older now because he looks so young in that film. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, just I think the typography that fits would be a nice, clean, like well placed and well cut, like serif font would be really nice. So, yeah, let me grab these. So all this stuff came in while we were talking. Yeah, I think it's a really cool idea of doing the typography where it's kind of blending into one another and kind of folding into itself. Could be quite interesting. It could be quite cool to do. The last time we were talking, I was thinking it'd be kind of rad to do, let's see, where you would kind of take like parts of the name. So it'd be like the A, and then the K, and the E. Then you'd have like his other parts of his name here. Then they would be on separate things where this would be folding into itself, you know. So
Yeah.
you'd have this going like into the center axis. Everything's coming in and out basically. And as these letters kind of go in, they kind of fold out this way too, which could be really nice and eloquent and stuff, because could be interesting. One other thing I was thinking, and I was talking about it on Leo's one, was that, and this would be hard with the kaleidoscope obviously, but to have like the letters kind of follow a circle that spirals into it, you know. If let's say if you were to do like a frame where you're doing like a what feels like a large push in just due to the dramatics of the shot, where you're going from dark to light, but you could do is you can have like really the typography kind of following that and kind of spinning in that direction and kind of going this way, but you're going through it in Z space, you know. It could be kind of pretty cool. So just other like weird thoughts, simple transitions, but I think with your idea, it's so cleanly placed that it doesn't need a whole lot because of like how nice it is, and it doesn't need to have like a ton of extra effects to it because it already has all the core ideas and everything there. So let's see, and I think
I feel like I need to push it a bit more. I don't know. Like this one in particular, I'm not really super not happy with it the way it is at the moment. Like maybe if the type was more like it was like a hall of mirrors going down like a corridor, that could look quite interesting. So there's quite a lot of instances of the directed by text, like as if it's in like a hall of mirrors, and you're still seeing like the portal in front of you.
That could be really cool. Like, so it's like a house of mirrors kind of thing, right?
Yeah, because the whole time I've been kind of like doing these, I kind of remember like when I was a kid and looking through kaleidoscopes, and there's just so much stuff going on, like you can't even take it all in at the same time.
Yeah.
And maybe I should try and capture a bit more, you know, that kind of sense.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I think that if you can find a way to kind of create an interesting kaleidoscopic experience, it could be really cool. But also keeping in mind like your main ideas of keeping the like the wormhole kind of idea, you know. So what you could possibly do, and this is just an idea to give you a little bit more depth, is to like take the text, the type at least, and like put it a little bit closer to us. Let's imagine like the camera is very shallow, the lens is very shallow, so, and then how like that plays together, and then let's see, cancel. I'm just testing ideas, and this is one thing I would always encourage to, like, if you're making these things, I'm saying this more for everybody that's listening, but if you're making things, like, don't be afraid to just test things. If like Phil is saying, like, he's not quite sold on it, what I think that means is like it doesn't have enough like visual complexity that he's like after. So you can always like just test things really quite quickly by just quickly moving things around and seeing like, oh, okay, what the problem is, or the thing that I want more of is like more depth, I guess, or having more like layering, I guess, or visual complexity to the image, so that it has like some kind of interesting I don't know, depth, for lack of a better word. Sometimes it's hard. I apologize while I'm making things and trying to be creative. I have one channel in my head, it's creative, and the other one's talking, and when I'm doing this, they're constantly fighting for attention. So yeah, I think maybe like just playing with, just adding like a little bit of, I don't know, just a little bit more of visual complexity, and then possibly shifting some of the values a little bit. So not shifting them necessarily, but like I'm just going to add like a little gradient in the center here, and then just ever so slightly just to lift the blacks. And then if you want, you can always do like the curves adjustment to slightly lift the blacks in the center here, and then we'll make a mask. I'm just going to lift all this stuff a little bit, and in my mask I'm going to invert the mask and then hit G for gradient, sit in the center. I'm going to hold shift and then pull it out, hit X actually. There we go. So see if that looks better. And these are just like little cues, and I think a little bit of texture might help too, just like some very light paper texture. Let me see if I can get some texture in here. I don't know if you guys do it, but something that I definitely have is I have a folder of just textures that I go through, and I have like a bunch of stuff from just like the years and years of just doing this stuff. I have like a ton of just random stuff in here. But what I like to do is just like quickly grab a texture and throw it on something to just see how it looks. I wish I knew where I got these from. I forget, probably somewhere on the internet or from a friend. I think these might have been like some kind of like downloadable free thing or something. So let's see, and I'll just take this and crush this a little bit. Push this down. Oops.
Yeah, the comping's going to make such a big difference.
Yeah.
I found that today. I was on a different project, and it just wasn't coming together until I put film grain on it, and then it just worked. It just made everything work.
You have to kind of,
yeah.
it's like you have to do that like 5 times before you realize that, oh, okay, like I'm gonna be okay once I go to the comping phase, you know. So it's like a part of like the journey of creating something, and then just having that confidence as you go through it, and being able to kind of see how everything looks together too. I don't know if you necessarily have to have this texture. I think the only reason I'm adding texture is to have, I kind of like this dark voidness, and I think it's also really hard to judge these things by just having, let me see, screen, invert this, just having a still, because a still is only, you know, it's like a picture's worth 1,000 words, but moving picture is completely different. So when this stuff starts to move, like how would the texture play with it and all that kind of stuff, you know. So which gets quite complex and interesting too. So what I'm doing now is I'm just overlaying it, and then I'm using hue saturation. I'm pulling it back ever so slightly just to add in a little bit more visual noise. And I'll crush this down a little bit in the levels. I use hotkeys a lot, so I use Command L for like bringing up the levels, and Command U for bringing up like hue saturation and stuff. Sorry, you were gonna say something?
Well, it's more of a question. Maybe it can wait till later, but I'll just fire out there now. If that's okay. When you're designing, how kind of like when you're actually doing your files, how kind of animatable do you have to make them? Do you normally give them to a team who will kind of make a lot of the assets from scratch and rig them the way they want, or do you just kind of not let any of that get in the way and kind of create what you want to create, and kind of let figure the animation part out later from like a technical standpoint?
Yeah, I think it all, for me at least, it depends on who I'm working with. So if I'm working with somebody that I know likes to work cleanly, then I will definitely make sure that I keep my files quite organized and clean. When it comes to like doing the concept phase of making something, if I do like the base, like the frames, I'm just thinking selfishly about myself and not dying having to spend time in organizing things, and I'm just building things as quick as possible. Because and when you're doing a pitch, you're just trying to get your ideas out as fast as possible, and you're trying to put all your effort and time into that. So it really, for me, it just depends on the partner in which I'm working with. So if I'm working with a team, It depends on their pipeline, and I will always, keep in mind, like, okay, like, how do you guys like working the best? Like, what's the best way for this to work most efficiently for all of us, so that you guys aren't hating me for having created these frames that aren't achievable, in the timeline and stuff. So it's always like a, back and forth kind of a situation where I'm trying to find a good way of making something quite unique, but then also not letting, I don't like to let limitations on myself when I'm making things too, because great work doesn't come from just like, oh, we can't do that, like you can't do that. That's not going to make good work. So I'm constantly thinking about how to push it, but I'm very much aware of a pipeline and not trying to make enemies with my team. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, that's really interesting, man. One of the reasons I was asking was because, particularly with the image and the fire image, I want to give it kind of more Z depth, and I can think of an easy way of kind of like doing that in Photoshop, just kind of laying up a few images and matching some elements out.
Mm-hmm.
But that might not really animate using. I probably wouldn't be able to animate it that way. And so the only way to actually kind of get the Z depth that would animate is probably to kind of do like, fire simulation and liquid simulation. And it's not, that's the kind of stuff that's going to take quite a long time to do, and maybe isn't the most time efficient thing to do right now at this kind of stage.
Yeah.
So that's like what, kind of why I asked.
Yeah, I think you gotta what you need to do is that's more or less like time management and like resource management, so it's like, and it's just using common sense as much as you can to kind of help you from like not dying, because that's the last thing you want to do. Is like the worst thing you could do at this stage is to overcomplicate your approach in the post effect side. It's more or less like getting your ideas out. I really firmly believe in it, and I think I'll use like John Lasseter, for example, when he's explaining the art of Pixar, like how Pixar works is like technology inspires the art, or I think it's like art inspires or challenges the technology, or I forget the word for word, but basically what he's saying is the art is pushing the technology is getting pushed by the art, and then the technology brings the art to the next level, and then they work simultaneously. And I think you should look at when you're making this stuff very much similarly, where you're not putting too much emphasis on getting lost in certain types of details of production. I think it's always, like I said, it's always good to have that in mind. But for me, when I'm doing this, I'm selfishly just wanting to make what I want to see. And then I would worry about that with the other part of my team. Once we get there and I go, oh, whoa, shit, this is going to be really hard to do. Then we have to work backwards and go like, okay, we can only do this and that. And then what I would do is go, okay, well, like if you're only offering me this, I'm going to push you and say we need to do this as well. And then it's just like a back and forth until the work comes out. My friend Chris recently said something quite brilliant. He said, he was asking me how I'm doing, and I have so much stuff going on. I was like, well, if I can make it through this next like 4 months, it's going to, it's going to be quite an accomplishment. And he was saying, from what he's realized is that the best times in his work's career, like in his career and his work, is that when you're on the brink of insanity, but everything's being pushed and a little bit out of the uncomfortable zone, is usually when the best work comes out, because that's when you're like you're creating serendipity, when you're trying to solve problems that you never thought you could solve before. And I couldn't agree with him more. I thought it was like a really, really well placed kind of thing. So to talk, I'll get back to that in just a second. I just don't want to, I'm jumping ahead over here. But so what I'm doing is your type was like nicely laid out, but it was quite sharp. And so what I did, I always tell you guys this, and I taught you guys this too. This is more or less a pet peeve thing for me, and it's because I got OCD or something. But to solidify the image, what I like to do is I like to take my typography and I'll blur it. You can either blur the type itself by using the blur tool, or you can just like hit it really quickly. And I use my mouse, or I'll use my Wacom. I have a 27 QHD Cintiq. That's what I use as when I draw on digitally, but I set it to about 20, and I just kind of like tap to just hit it ever so slightly. And what it does is it really, it's a very subtle effect, but it's, if you look at the difference, you see the difference there. It really brings everything together. It makes it feel warm, and it feels more analog and more embedded rather than laid over. So sorry, I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget that, because that's kind of an important thing.
I'm sorry I didn't do it. I know that's important.
No, it's okay. I mean, more or less than any reason, for any, this is like the second part of this. What I'm doing is I'm kind of like going beyond what you were expected to do anyways, but I think it's more, this is kind of what we did and we experienced when we were doing the mentorship together too. And this is what I learned when I would go, say, work at Prologue and work with those amazing people, is I thought something was done, and then they would show me what done was. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a completely different realm. And then I would try to deconstruct it. What makes this so much better? Why? And I think it's all those little details, those little bits and pieces, and then having those little things kind of help support your overall project, and the refinement of things. So if we go back to, say, the original frame, and then just adding in those little bits and pieces and textures, and this is a very quick and subtle way, but all in all, what I did is I just kind of duplicated some things, added some blurs, and then added some textures, and then I did what is this blur called? It's filters. Well, let me do it. Go on the layer that's active, filter, blur, radial blur, and then I just basically kind of created a false blur basically to it. But I just thought it'd be kind of cool. In my mind, when I see this animating, the type behind it's kind of when you're, how do I explain the motion of it? And this is how, if I were to say working with a team, and let's say thankfully my concept got picked, and so the next phase would be me explaining it to a team that can handle taking this on, because I'd probably have other things to do. But what I would do is I would say I see this kind of if you look at microscopic footage of plant cells or animal cells or viruses, the way they move, they kind of jiggle, they kind of wiggle around, And I was thinking it would be kind of interesting, almost if this light source was kind of, if this was the light source and it was unstable, kind of like a wormhole kind of, but it was ever so slightly, and what it was doing, it was kind of shaking each letter, kind of like a cell underneath a microscopic telescope thing, or not telescope, microscope, opposite way. So, but yeah, I was thinking it'd be kind of interesting if it kind of felt kind of shaky. At least the blurred type felt kind of shaky as it was kind of going through here, and just kind of had this uneven kind of feel to it. So, and you can achieve this stuff in After Effects, because I remember working on X-Men with Alistair, and Alistair was animating a lot of that, and he managed to get that really interesting feel in the main title stuff that we did with that. So, and he did a really great job pulling that effect off, just using After Effects with a wiggle effect or something like that. But these are just this is kind of how I would explain it, and then I would go into detail and have references that I would go and look. And if you were to say animate this yourself, if you wanted to, I would say, if that was your idea, the first thing you want to do is go find the source material, find out how it moves and study it, look at it, really open your eyes and see why, and then bring that back to this. I always think that there's nothing really new. There's nothing new really, as we talked about too. It's just how you combine all the ingredients. All the ingredients have been used already, but it's more or less the way you combine your different ingredients, being inspired by an amoeba in a plant life or something like that, and a microscopic photography or something, and then using that as your motion design inspiration. That could be really quite interesting, So, and where you pull your inspiration from, I think, is really quite important, So, yeah, going on a tangent, but yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah, you know me, the king of tangents.
I can see that. Well, I can see that working.
Yeah.
That kind of optical effect. And it's nice. It's kind of in your peripheral vision as well. So you've got you're kind of drawn into the center, and there's still that kind of that noise going on, kind of around you, just like when you're looking through a kaleidoscope.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you can look at kaleidoscopic, like what does that look like, getting your inspiration for how things move and stuff. But at this phase, when I'm just making still frames, I'm just really thinking about it. I'm thinking about it moving, but at the same time, I'm just thinking about just getting my ideas out as fast as possible. Because usually, what I'm giving you guys time to do, usually I'll have like 2 days maybe, or a day, or like maybe 3 if I'm lucky. So, but I work rapidly, and that's kind of how I've like kind of grown up in the industry. So, but yeah, I think these are like my only core notes. I saved the PSD in there for you if you need it or if you want it. I think the same for these. I think you have a really wonderful way of laying type out. I think the thing I love about the way you lay type out is your restraint, like how you restrain yourself from putting too much on there. And I think that maybe you can either take my advice or not. So it's more or less up to you. So. But yeah, these are really cool. I'm excited to see how this all kind of looks and comes together. So cool.
Awesome, dude.
Awesome. Cool. Anything else I can help you with?
Thanks so much. I think that's it for now. I think last lesson we were talking about maybe trying to get some more of the objects from the film into there, and that's something I'm looking into how to do that kind of like technically with the fire and the ink, and I think probably look at like Turbulence FD or something. But I think for the next week I'm probably going to concentrate more on getting that kind of the depth and the rest of the kind of, I guess, visual details in the frames first, before I get kind of too bogged down with kind of trying to learn that piece of software and get these simulations perfect and everything.
Awesome. Yeah, that'll be great. I think once you can merge those two things, you're going to be in like a really great spot of creating something really quite beautiful and something to be proud of, because again, that's like the reason why we're making these things, right? When you make a passion project or you do things off of passion, the idea is to like feed that need to create, and also that need to grow, and also that desire to make something that's unique and special to yourself, that represents you. I think when you make passion work, because I would consider this to be passion, you guys are doing this completely voluntarily. I'm here voluntarily for you guys, and I think it's the cool thing about this is like when you this is something I was thinking about, and before we started this class too, is my own career path, and then like seeing people, like I was looking at Johnny Hardstaff's portfolio the other day. And I was just, I'm a huge fan of his stuff. If you haven't seen his work, are you familiar with his work?
I may have. I'm just Googling him.
Let's see. Here. Well, the thing I was going to say is like, when you look at his projects, he's got a lot of projects, and he's been around doing amazing work for quite some time. If you look at his archive stuff from back then. But he's done some of my favorite projects. And I think the thing that I was realizing with his work is he's very concise and aware of the work that he goes about making, from what I understand. I had him on the podcast. He's a really great guy, and I've had some dialogue between us on email and stuff. But the thing I really love is that I think that he manages to have a lot of integrity in his work, that he continually pushes his own personal style and voice and taste. If you look at his work on here, like if you just look at this selection of work, it's completely his taste and his style, and it's quite unique and different from a lot of people, I think. And what I'm getting at is when you do these projects, these are he's fortunate to have gotten to the realm where he's able to do passion projects that are also paid, not passion project. I'm sure he's very passionate. I'm making a lot of leaps of assumptions here, so I could be completely wrong. But when I really dissect and understand his work, and I reflect myself against his, I realize that there's all these choices that we can make, and when we do the passion projects, or we go out and do the things that we are most in line with harmoniously within ourselves creatively, I think we create the work that's really going to stand out and be the special part and the special ingredient when you're creating something. And by putting that out there, you're going to only continue that spiral. Basically, you're going to get more of that kind of work, because if you do Like if you say, like when I was first starting out, I was working and doing like graphic design on like board graphics and stuff, and I enjoyed it, but I really wanted to work in film. And the only way that somebody would know that I wanted to work in film is if I went and made film type work. And so I think with this kind of stuff, if like your goal is to make, say, title sequences, or like you can take all this stuff and really apply it to like poster design or graphic design, it's all quite similar, then you can like use that as a device to help you get to the right place with those kind of types of that audience and those clients and stuff. So again, a little rant, but it's more or less on a personal note, just like keeping those passion projects alive. And I found that as I was looking through my, some of my heroes too, just seeing like, wow, like I love it. They don't have like, there's not one bad project here. They all make sense and they all work well, and they're all kind of connected to his own personal voice. So this is really cool. So
There's a question from our viewers.
yeah, what's up?
Says, what would you say is a priority when taking your courses? Taking time into consideration and doing the 1 week thing, or dig deeper in the subjects you're introducing as we go? I know you study several things at a time. Can you briefly talk about how you go about managing that, if time allows that?
Yeah, definitely. It's a great question. Thank you for asking it. In regards to like priorities, there's this book. It's called Eat That Frog. For most of you that know me, you're probably tired of me talking about this book, but the only reason I bring it up is because it's just an outstanding book. It's all about helping you understand how to manage your priorities and managing your time. So in regards to, say, like my class in the priorities, I would always suggest going and digging deeper into things. And like my mentorship students, like when you guys agree to, I mean, that's something I've constantly been preaching, like go deeper into it, go further down, like follow the rabbit hole as far as you can go, because that's where you're going to really get a lot of information out of it as you go, is you're going to find more out of it. So, and for me, the way that I juggle and balance my life, it's quite complex. My life is very complex considering all the stuff that I'm doing, but I have a quick system, and I learned this from Vitaly and also Eat That Frog and Manage Your Day to Day and a couple other books and some other brilliant people out there that are prolific, like Elon Musk and all those kind of guys. Because I look at, like, say, Olympic athletes or like world changers, and I try to apply those techniques, because I always think to myself, when I was growing up, I was always concerned that I would be like a starving artist. That was always a big concern for me. And so I think being aware that that's a possibility, and I grew up in a very artistic family. Everybody was very artistic, but nobody was able to manage like connecting the dots to making a full-on living and supporting a family. So it was like for me, it was like this unobtainable thing. And so I respected that by like really taking it seriously when I decided to make a system to develop myself in order to achieve like the goals that I'm after. So really quickly, what I do is I write out all my goals of the things that I need to do the night before. And I'll be completely honest, I don't necessarily get everything done. It's not possible. The dream me wants to get like 100% of the stuff done. Usually what I end up getting is about 80%. And that's still an accomplishment, because 80% of my day is an average person's week, I think. So what I try to do is I lay everything out on a list of priorities of everything that I need to do. And I usually do that on Sunday nights. I'll lay out everything that I go through my calendar, and I'll look at everything for the week. And then I kind of pick out the things that are necessary. I only do top priority things, A-list priorities, B-list priorities, and sometimes C-list priorities. And then every day I take bits and pieces. And it's just like, a marathon isn't run in one jump. It's many steps combined that make you to the finish line. So I consider it like a marathon, and I'm constantly growing and applying things. So in my priorities, one of those things is like, watching like a behind the scenes documentary of how like Aliens was made, or for example, or something like a friend shared with me recently, or listening to a certain type of book that really encourages me to go on things, and then also working on different projects or having delivery due dates and all that kind of stuff. So it's more or less having those things, but it's kind of a complex thing, and I'm glad we're here. It's pretty brilliant that we're a part of like, the internet's allowing us to connect and communicate and exchange ideas. But the first things first, I would definitely strongly recommend this book. The audiobook, somebody's mentioning it. The audiobook is it's cheesy. It has some cheese in it, but it's like the most powerful tool. I swear, if you can apply it and open your mind to it and use it as a system, and you find your own rhythm with it, I think you're gonna really find a great flow. Also, manage your day to day. Manage Your Day to Day is really quite an incredible book too. I was just talking about it with somebody on Twitter too. It's from 99U, which they make really great books and stuff too. So this is a really awesome one, especially for all of us here because we're all creatives, you know. So, how do I have time with staying consistent, building habits? Or do I have a hard time? Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, honestly, I was up quite late last night. I was up till like 5 in the morning or something because I was just having fun creating things. And that's a bad habit because like, well, I guess it's a good habit, but it's also bad because I'm breaking all my rhythm for the next day because I'm completely wrecked, obviously. But I think it's important to, you know, you have to have confidence in your own self that you're going to be able to beat bad habits. And so for me, it's like, it's constantly a struggle, but at the same time, once you get going in that rhythm, once you start getting that rhythm, that habit going, what I've read psychologically, it takes us about 20 or so days to set a proper habit, whether dietary or physical or mental. If you can really push through it and have a system. So the system that I do is I held myself accountable by having a list of things that I need to check off and be accountable for every day. And if I can have that, then I can really stick to it. So, and that helps me keep accountable as I move. So, but yeah, like reading a book and applying that knowledge, it is difficult, right? I mean, you're hearing my opinions of how I think you should do what you do, and this is how I do it. But that's like very challenging for you to take my words and then apply it to your own system. So I think for me, when I go through a book, like there's many books that I have that I've read 5-10 times or listened to 5-10 times, but I think it's more or less the dedication of the repetition, basically. And I look at myself obviously as a creative person, but I also like to thrive in the fact of like trying to be like an Olympic level creative person, if that makes sense. That sounds probably really cheesy, but I enjoy and thrive in that crazy world. So but yeah, I think the best way to do it is just to really follow it as closely as you can. So hopefully that makes sense. Phil, these are awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with next. If you need any help, just hit me up on Slack and I'll try to help you out with as you go through the middle of the week. I know you're busy, but if you get a chance and you want to send some stuff over to me, feel free to, and just, you know, think about being creative and also the idea of keeping your things iconic. Same, all the notes and the ideas like I was talking with Leo about, it would apply to you too. So, yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Ash.
You're welcome, man. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
You too. Thank you so much, dude.
Always, baby. Yeah. Wish I would have started with some old school rap, but I didn't have it in here today. So, what's up, Yaz? You're up next, dude.
Hey Ash,
What's up, dude? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, how are you?
I'm good, man. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Just keep on moving on. It's really cool. I'm really enjoying this like idea of involving so many more people into this experience and just seeing how like what it yields and stuff. I'm just really quite curious to see how it's all going to kind of coalesce and stuff. So yeah. So I don't know if you heard, but I haven't had a chance to rewatch the film, which is a shame on me because I should have. But I don't know, got sidetracked. And sometimes it's hard for me to watch a film completely because I have to be willing to give it all my time and energy. And sometimes I'm just not good about that. So, or I have like a million other things going on, and it's just a priority thing, as I was talking about earlier, you know, like I wasn't setting a priority to it. So,
Yeah, especially with Terry Gilliam movies.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but how has it been since last week? Did you have some time to kind of think about what we talked about, and what are your thoughts, and what are you thinking, and where are you going, and all that stuff?
Yeah, I definitely thought about some of the things we talked about last week. I guess this week as a group, we had a little bit of less time to collaborate, so um, we didn't move as far on these frames as we wanted to in a group. But most of these frames are just kind of testing out ideas, and they're very draft kind of phase frames. And I included most of the original frames and uh, like alternative versions of the frames also. With these frames, I was going for like more of a poster effect, kind of reducing some of the details and kind of making it more like a silhouette, just trying to extract the shape out of the frames, and seeing just kind of like reduce some of the noise and too many of the shapes into just kind of like more of the like you were saying, more of like the iconic versions.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. And also distill it down. Sorry, you continue. I'm just listening.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I also tested out a couple of things. I was trying like a peeling effect. I didn't include this, but I was just trying to also get like a peeling effect and different things, and kind of just trying to reduce the information on the frames essentially.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like, as we always talk about, and I probably sound like a broken record, like always like reduce. But I think the reason why I'm saying it is because I think for myself too, and the funny thing about giving advice is I'm basically talking to myself, or the self of me that I'm trying to make better every day. So first and foremost, I really love the way that you're using this, like it's like a rasterized poster effect. Are you getting this effect in your render, or is this through Photoshop?
It's through Photoshop. I was playing around with the thresholding of the frame. Like the color, the blue frame was sort of what came out of the render. Yeah, that one. And then I post-processed it in Photoshop.
It's cool. I love the way like you can take these things and make some really strong graphical. Let's see, let me take this. What size are your frames? Let's see, cancel. Let's say like, I don't know what the ratio of the film is, but let's say like 1920 by 1080.
It's 1.85 ratio.
1.85. Crap, I don't even know what that would be. 20 by damn, this is locked. I'll just make a quick frame though.
That's fine.
800. We'll do like a 235.
I actually got it right here. It's 1920 by 1038.
There it is. Okay, 1920 by 1038. Thank you. So this is the actual ratio of the film. You found this by going to like IMDb or something? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what we talked about, I think, last time. So let's see that. Command J. I work on my PC sometimes, and I also work on my Mac, and it's like my keys get all confused, and my brain's like, hey, what's going on here? So, but what I was gonna say is I'm gonna just kind of retool some of these things, because I think you have some really brilliant things happening here, and just this little separate sections that you've managed to create. Let's see here. When I make things, I like to when I make like renders, because I know sometimes renders they take a little bit of time to get solid. So what I like to do is I try to make a big render or a big scene, and then I like to go and extract and find like interesting bits and pieces that I can then go and like crop into, basically, so I can get a lot out of it, So sorry, again, as I explained, it's so hard for me sometimes like to talk and then also to get my ideas out and not sound like a complete babbling moron as I'm explaining things to you guys and making good points. But what I was going to say is, so your original render was quite big. It was like 4K, which is great. And that's usually what I render out. I usually render between 4 to 6K images, and I try to get all that information out, because what you get is you get these really quite unique and interesting frames. Like that's a really cool graphic frame for me, at least. And I think that there's, let me rotate this. Let's see, let me flip this all upside down. Just want to see what it feels like. I'm going to that here. For those that are watching and not sure what I'm doing, I'm collapsing everything to the top by hitting Command, Option, Shift, and E. And then what I'm going to do is Command T. I'm going to rotate this upside down. Oops. Not that way. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to flip it vertically. And then see, I think I'm all confused now. See that? I messed up the order in which I was supposed to do that. See this, and then flip horizontally. I'll get to my point, I promise. So what I wanted to do is explain, like, and show you, like, I think this could be really cool and it could work really well if it was kind of like this really stark graphical, kind of feels like Pi or something, Aronofsky's Pi. You've seen that film?
I haven't seen that.
Let's see. Let's see here. Sorry. Oh, you haven't seen Pi. So Pi is really, it's like one of my favorite films. You should check it out. It's really awesome. Like as a property, it's really awesome. Hold on one second. I'll be right back. All right. Yeah, you should check it out because it has like a really cool, similar style to it. But what I was getting at is when I make frames and stuff, as I try to make a large render that I can then move around and find different designs in there. So like you can go like right here was quite interesting. And these are really interesting kind of graphical moments that are happening that you can just kind of crop in on, you know? So like for me, I would go and find something that's like this. And I love the way you put the type too, the treatment on it's really cool. And then I would just kind of go and move that render around and just find some interesting extra frames to kind of play with. I think we talked about this last time too. But this really helps, at least for me, when I go and make things, you get a lot more mileage out of things if you do it like this too. You can do like right here. And then I saw there was like some really rad stuff going on here too. So you can have like, see this. And then you can lead down into like blackness or something. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of taking your larger frames and cutting them up into smaller sections and isolated moments. So that kind of adds in some kind of like interesting visual complexity, I guess, that kind of helps utilize all this effort that you've already made to get more out of it. If you're going to go and take this render and then you want to add this, I would say continue the effect that you're making on here. Like you would continue that same like this noisy threshold thing. I'm not even sure how you're doing it. Let's see, to get that same kind of like dithering effect on Bruce Willis's face could be quite cool, you know? So keeping all the styles completely together would be really awesome.
Okay.
Let's see.
No, I definitely. Do you think that? So another thing, I had so like talking about that Bruce Willis frame.
Mm-hmm.
Does that like fit in like because it's kind of like I've got these CG renders and then I got this realistic frame in there. I sort of have I guess a problem like bringing human characters into the frames because they can be so drastically different from CG.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of shying away from like any sort of realism with human faces. Just trying to get the essence of Bruce Willis in that frame.
That Bruce Willis essence.
Exactly.
Love that guy. Die Hard. I mean, he's been in such amazing films. So yeah, what you need to do, at least from my perspective, if you had to like say put him in your frames, the thing that I would do is I would find a way of cleverly putting him into the same style. So what I would possibly do is connecting the core and the themes and the ideas behind the project. So let me take this out here. So what I would possibly try to do is like take Bruce Willis's face. Let's try something out here. Let's go to Bruce Willis and 12 Monkeys. Let's see if we can find just like a picture, not the trailer. Man, Brad Pitt looks so young, man. Crazy. What I'm gonna try and do is I'm gonna find like a really simple picture of him that has dramatic lighting that I can put into here. So let's see. And then you're gonna have to walk me through the process in which you made that effect, because I don't know how you're doing it, so I can match it. So I'd grab this. This is again really quite rough and simple way of doing it and approaching it. So I would go and grab this and put him here. And when I place things, I'd probably set it to screen. And what I want to do is try and find a way of having his like worried face inside the all-seeing eye of the spider, I guess, if that makes sense. So how are you going about getting that like dither threshold effect?
Yeah, so I mean, as like a beginning, I kind of extract his just his body out, and then from there I just go to image adjustments and then threshold.
Let me just delete these outside so I can get.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, this is a very quick job, obviously. Looks like he's got a sweet ass hat on right now. So I love Bruce. Okay, so image adjustments.
Yeah, and then threshold.
Threshold. Okay. Yeah.
And then you can just move it around until you get like a good shape out of his face. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say that's kind of it. And then how are you getting that dithered, pixelated thing?
That's actually just noise from there. I had another, like you showed, like having a layer where there's noise and you just multiply it down.
Oh, okay. So you made one with the noise then too.
Yeah.
So let's see. So J, and then we'll just set this to like multiply. We'll take all the color out of it. And then filter. You're just adding like a ton of noise to it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just ramp this up. And then I'll take this one, put it on the image adjustment, threshold.
There you go.
That's how you're doing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You gotta maybe play a little bit with the levels also, just to kind of get it clear.
Get a better read on it. Let's see. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be very quite crude, but get the idea. Yeah, this one needs to have like adjustment on it because it's all flat. It's flattening everything out. Let's see. So, and I think also there's a problem with is because like that part was like too intense with the graphically was looking weird. So I would probably take this image. Now I've resized it so it completely messed up the bit on it basically. There's actually a way to adjust this setting when you resize things up. So let me save it down. If I want to resize, let me change it to, I believe it's nearest neighbor.
Yeah, that'll give it like that pixelated look.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. And so like in regards to adding people to your frame, yeah, it is difficult because what you're doing is your brain has associations with it, right? And it's going to constantly be finding like, oh, I've seen him in Die Hard, or like all these things. It's not easy basically to like have it work, but you can definitely find a way of making it graphically appealing. It's just more or less like how you're going to do so. So I would say like for this, and I might fail, but this is okay. I'm going to group this together. I'm going to hit Command J. I'm going to hit Command, I'm going to group it and then rotate it. And then I'm going to put them together and just see how this looks if I put this over as screen and screen. Oh, no, I think that's not going to be good because it's too much noise. What I was trying to do is find a way of taking the likeness of his face away, or creating some sort of like interesting Bruce,
Imagery.
yeah, Bruce symmetry. And perhaps, actually, let me rotate this back.
He looks like he's wearing face paint.
Yeah, he looks haggard as hell. I'm gonna change the color. I'm gonna colorize it and see if by turning it red, what that'll do to it.
Interesting.
Just switching it. I mean, the film is quite rugged and crazy, and so it's kind of good to have a little bit of that distortion and that effect to it. But trying to take it and yeah, I mean, there could be something interesting here where taking these things and kind of folding them on themselves. So like maybe this picture comes in, but then it's like starts to spin and spiral out, or like it starts to distort as you get closer to it, kind of like his own sanity. I've been playing on that stuff too. So again,
we also talked about like the punching in of like the zooming in, like in Blade Runner, and Johnny Hartstaff's. I saw that commercial or that thing that you did.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really well done.
Yeah, that's really cool. It was also in Ghost in the Shell, I saw.
Yeah, it is in Ghost in the Shell. So many things there in Ghost in the Shell. Pretty much everything has been done in Ghost in the Shell. That's just been kind of recaptured. One thing I would do also is you're playing with like the grid of his barcode, I guess. What you could do, this might be difficult. You would have to find a way of making his name legible, but you could put the type over his face, almost like it's silencing him. You know, like he's in a straitjacket. He's kind of crazy. You know, he's also kind of like losing himself. So you can kind of play with that a little bit too. Let's see. Let me group this together and put this in one group and then look at this. And let me try that effect again by moving this over here. Let me just see if I can get that effect to work on this one. And then we can see if like the red switch off would be good enough. So I'll hit the screen and I'll go to U, Command U, and I'll minus this down. I'll colorize this. This is how I always color things too. Let's see there. Okay. And I'll just shift this over here, change it a little bit more, have some dark depth to it, bump up the saturation. Yeah, and now you have this kind of this interesting graphical language, this separation between reality and non-reality, I guess, as you're going through this. You can put the type in here as well. Let's see this. I love the way the type looks too. It's all nasty and crazy. Do you just like add some blur and like just distort it?
Yeah, it has it's kind of like the type, and then also has the thresholding effect applied to it. So it kind of, it has that blowing out effect, blurring effect to it.
Yeah, I love it. It feels like old film. You should definitely watch Pi. It's awesome. It's one of my favorites. It's got a lot of interesting things going on too. But yeah, I would say like if you're having a hard time finding a way of connecting them, what you need to do is connect. This is obviously incredibly crude and very fast, and I wouldn't do it like this. Well, I would just find a better. I would spend a little bit more time finding the reference and thinking about it a little bit more before I go into this section. But it's kind of like this is a process, and what I'm trying to show you here is like taking the effect that you've created that I think is really quite effective in matching the tone and feel of the film, and then merging the style. So like you see how I did it to match this style, which is then giving us a lot of really cool frames, because like now we have like these two frames out of here, and I think it's quite effective. So let's see, I'm gonna Command J again to group these and then move them around. Like that right there is quite iconic, and it looks really cool. And it has some really interesting shape language and design already happening there. You could also like flip it vertically and see the spider right here. Let's see, move this down. Yeah, I think it was okay where it was. If you can notice what I've been doing, I'm always trying to find another way of looking at things. That's for me, it was what design is. I'm always constantly trying to find another vista or vantage point of an existing thing and trying to find a way of conveying the ideas through using design and all that kind of stuff. So one other thing I would probably do to the red here is I'd add a lot of noise to it. So I'd go to filter, noise, add noise, just so I can get that same effect. Let's see, I'd probably switch it to uniform so it doesn't have the Gaussian, like the overlay madness going on. Then I would just go to this one, I'd hit Command F and it would apply the same filter to it. Command L and I would pull it back a little bit. Sorry, I'd pull the blacks down and then I would look at it full frame. Always when I design too, I'm always doing hitting the F key and I want to see everything that I'm working on. Always seeing it and being able to get a full picture. And oftentimes I will kind of sit back in my studio. I'll stand like maybe 10 feet away and get a really good perspective as to what it is that I'm trying to achieve. That will give me a lot of perspective. And then also I'll hit R or N to rotate, just to throw my mind off a little bit, just to make sure that I'm not thinking that it's good and it's in fact bad, because your brain will just become accustomed to bad work. If you continually give it bad work, it'll just think, oh, this is okay. And so I would kind of go through that and I'd go, okay, well, I think this is okay, but here's a couple things that I would do from this point on as I would go back to here. And sometimes I'll give notes to myself, not oats, notes. So what I would do is I would probably go like, a couple things I need to do is redo the whole thing to fix the res, because the resolution's all messed up. This is all like, it just feels like a badly managed file. And then I'd probably figure out a way of making a frame out of this, because this is graphically really awesome. I love the way the red bleeds. It almost feels like a country or something interesting. So I'd probably make a frame out of his eye. I'd probably go into here and make something out of this too. So what I'm doing is I'm reframing and figuring out different ways of finding different solutions in these things. This could be a frame right here too. Put some type here. So put some type here. See what I'm doing is I'm just trying to like get as much as I can. Like what was one frame, or the effort of one frame, turns into 3. Yeah. And then I have a sequence because I can go from one thing to the other by kind of finding ways of having balance between white, red, and black. So. But yeah, hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully your buddies that you're building this with can help you do that. And I would say like I would add that effect to all these. Like I love this. I think this is great. I would add that effect to all these too. I would add that effect to this. I would keep it like super rigid. You could add that effect to this one too. Probably go in here and go like Command J, cancel. And then let's do the threshold. Just add that treatment to it. So this. And then hit J, Command J, we'll duplicate it, and then go to filter, noise, add noise, and turn this up a bit. Let's see. Yeah, I'll leave it monochromatic, and then I'll go to Command L for my levels. Keep doing that. Why am I doing that? So do this right here, Command J, duplicate it, hit screen. Let's see, open this up. Command L, drop the blacks down again, and then shift the color to colorize it. Bring that up here. And Command L, or just bring the levels up in the whole thing and then start to dial it in. And then maybe to add a little bit more visual complexity, I'll make a mask on that and I'll hit G. And in my gradient, I'll go to dissolve. And this creates that. I think you remember it. This is kind of the technique that I used when I was doing the illustrations.
Yes.
Yeah, which is kind of cool.
With,
yeah. So I'll kind of like play with this and kind of find ways of making it so it's not so perfect. So it has like some visual complexity. I'm doing this quite quickly, and I would go through this and make it. I love the way you did the type on this stuff, so I'd have to go through and blur it out and do it all like that blasted out effect and feel feels really good. So I'd have to do that. Maybe I'll do this. I'll maximize it, put it there, levels, pull all that noise out, and then I'll blur it. Let's see. Let's do a slight lens blur. Sorry if I'm moving fast. I'm running out of time. But I want to make sure I get all my ideas out to you. So some blur. Using lens blur for that. And then I'll hit OK. Then I'll go to filter, noise, add noise. And just drop this down. Levels, so it feels like it's gone through a bunch of processing, like a weird film processing stuff. Bring up this, like a really crappy high contrast feel to it. Yeah, so just playing with those things and kind of bringing everything together and trying to find like the right feel. I think the 2 feels right. And so when I'm building things like this and I'm not completely sure if it's working, I'll go and I'll focus on like one area that I like and go like, oh, okay, like this area is working. Like I like the way the 2 is working. But then maybe I would figure out going back to the original file, and I would kind of like maybe cut off part of the 2 so that when I get into here, it'll look quite interesting, you know, having those like jagged edges and bits and pieces and stuff. But I love the idea of fraying out the lines in these things, because it feels like the frayed edges of his sanity. So kind of connecting that, and also that spray paint style that we talked about, because it's kind of based on the stencil. The branding of the film has like that stencil approach to things, and this feels like spray paint on a building almost, you know. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, these are all just like little post effects. So yeah,
sweet. Yeah, I love all this. I'll definitely take a look and do all of it. It's really cool.
Awesome. And if you need any help with me, from me, let me know, and we can do more next week too, and kind of solidify it down. I really love where you're going and taking it. So this is going to just be a lot of fun. Like, I think you've really managed to find some really awesome gold with what you have here. These like simplified geometric one light lit, very contrasty 3D objects. You can definitely tie it into the rest of it. You just have to find a way to do it. And then once you're done with finding all those frames, then you just have to apply that style and feel to all the rest of them, you know, so that it has like a similar feel. So cool.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot.
You're very welcome. Cool. Thank you guys for being here. I'm stoked to be able to see you guys continue on and continue the growth and all that good stuff. There's going to be a lot of really cool things coming out of this. Thank you everybody for listening. John, is there any other questions?
Yeah, there's two more.
Okay.
First one says, I know you are going to industry workshops, but I guess you are not going to THU, right? I would love to meet you. So many questions I would like to ask.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'll be at industry workshops. I'm really excited about that. I believe that's in August, so I'm excited about that. I'll be there if you're going to be there. I'm there to answer questions and hang out and see everybody and be inspired and stuff. So yeah, that's going to be great. So, but I'm not going to go to THU. I don't think so. Yeah. So yeah.
The last one says it. Can you say what happened with your guys' work in project 2501?
2501? Yeah, sure. So we just kind of did it as a passion project. We went off and did it and made it. And I think it's just kind of, gone and become its own thing, So there was no real intention other than just paying homage. That was my intention, directing it. So it was more or less paying respect to a property in which it gave me so much in my life. It's just a huge it's like I feel indebted to it. So the idea behind what I wanted to do with that was just pay homage and respect to it, and do it properly as true as I could to the subject matter. And it was really cool. Like Andrew and I and also Aaron Beck we were in Japan last year or the year before, and we actually got a chance to meet one of the guys that actually animated and illustrated that intro sequence, and he was really happy with what we had made, and that was really awesome. So but that's pretty much it. My goal wasn't to go and make Ghost in the Shell. It was more or less like doing a passion project with my friends and being, really inspired by making something that we felt passionate about. It's probably going to turn into something else. So, and if it does, I can't talk about it probably until it's done anyway. So, but yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Awesome, guys. I'm super happy you guys all made it here. Thank you guys for being here. If you guys have any questions or needs or anything, like this is a part of like the Learn Squared thing. We're just trying to be as inclusive as possible with everybody and sharing everything that we know. That's the whole point of why we're doing this, because we're trying to make you guys better and ourselves as well, so that we can all continue the creative path and the journey in which we're doing. We're just trying to get constantly growing, and just really stoked. Thank you guys so much for everything. So you guys are very welcome. I think that's it, John. Good to go?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thank you guys, all my students too. Thank you guys for being here. Feel free to unmute your mics. Digital high fives as usual. And guys have a great day. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being open about sharing your work and your process with everybody too. So it's really cool.
Yeah, thanks, Josh.
Thanks.
Critiques. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And we'll talk soon, okay, guys?
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
All right.
Yeah. Digital high five. Awesome. Bam, bam. Have a great day, guys.
You too, man.
Peace. And everybody out there, have a great day. See you.